Banking license is not issued by Finance Ministry. It is issued by RBI, but not under RBI Act. It is issued under Banking Regulation Act. See, through RBI Act 1934, we got a central bank to do central banking functions like banker to the government, controlling the money supply, issuing the currency notes. But the function of regulating the banks is done by RBI through Banking Regulation Act 1949. Under this act, RBI gives license to the banks, it regulates the banks, and if the bank is not performing up to the mark, RBI can cancel the license. Can RBI cancel every bank's license? No, it cannot. RBI cannot cancel the license of a public sector bank. Public sector banks in India are under dual control. That is, public sector banks are controlled by RBI as well as the Finance Ministry. RBI does not have the power to cancel license or punish directors of a public sector bank. Now, an internal committee of RBI has suggested that large companies and large NBFCs should be given banking license. Now, the benefit of giving banking license to a large company is that such a large company will bring lots of capital to the bank. Okay, so there is a perennial problem of banks having low capital in India. So big business house, big money, and big capital. So that's a good point, right? Now, what do you mean by a large company? Large company means any company which has a asset of over 5,000 crore rupees. The problem that will arise is the problem of connected lending and circular banking. Connected lending. Normally a bank takes deposit from people at suppose 3% and it gives loans at 10%. Now if a big business house, say Reliance or Adani, they have been given the license to open a bank. These big companies, this rich person has a big company. It may be his company or connected to him, maybe his brothers or his friends family. Okay, so he has a connected company. Now what he will do is he will use his power as the owner of this bank to divert most of the money, most of the depositors money as loan to the connected firm. Okay, why will you do such a thing? Maybe because the financial condition of this company is not so good, therefore the 50 other banks in the country are supposed not giving loan to this company because its financial condition is not good. So this person will, as the owner of this bank, he will divert most of the money here. So that is connected lending. Now everything is computerized, so obviously it can be easily found out. To circumvent this, okay, to evade scrutiny, what this person will do is he will use circular banking. Suppose Reliance, Adani and Tata, all three have their big companies and all three have got banking license. Suppose now all of them want the bank to give money to the loan to their respective companies, but then they will be caught. So Reliance Bank will give loan to Adani's company, Adani's bank will give loan to Tata's company, and Tata's bank will give loan to Reliance company. In this way they will circumvent the process. Okay, now one question maximum people think is that when a company defaults, okay, when there is NPA and the company defaults in repaying the loan, then it is the owner of the company whose capital reduces. He needs to recapitalize it. That's true, but practically, that is theoretically true, but practically it is the depositors who suffer. See the case of PMC Bank, right? There also around 73% of the loans were diverted to a connected company. In the case of PMC Bank, who is suffering now? The depositors, right? When it happened with Yes Bank, okay, so with Yes Bank what happened, that it was a common man that could not transact his business for a week. Fine. Now the news articles which discussed this news, They also mentioned about the bank nationalization. So after independence, most of the banks were private banks. Since they were private banks, they were not directly answerable to the government or to the people, right? So what they did was they gave most of the loan to the rich person. Okay, they did not give loans to the poor people. So therefore, in 1969, Government of India forcefully nationalized 14 biggest private banks like Punjab National Bank, Canara Bank, and etc. In 1980 again, 6 more private banks were nationalized like Punjab and Sindh Bank. So the purpose was that banks should give loan to the poor people also. It should not be the case that the money, depositors' money goes to the companies or the rich people only. Okay, it should come to the poor people as well. So that was the objective. So was this objective achieved? Within 10 years of this 1969 nationalization, number of rural branches of banks became 10 times. Okay, 10 times within 10 years. Credit to rural areas became 20 times and credit to agriculture became 40 times. We are talking within 10 years, right? So yes, it was successful to a great extent. Now, since only big private banks were nationalized, the small private banks were left out. Some of those small private banks escaped nationalization and they survive even today, like Dhanalakshmi Bank and Federal Bank. After 1991 economic reforms, RBI gave license for new private banks, okay, like ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, and HDFC Bank. Please mind that even then, RBI did not give license to large companies because large companies have large requirement for cheap loans and there can be problem for the banking sector. Okay, so the basic idea here is that whosoever is the owner, see, owner need not be always a big company. Okay, so whosoever is the owner, that person should not have substantial say in the functioning of the bank. Okay, even if this person is not a big person, okay, he is like a normal person, but he has much control on this bank, then he can still say, he can still divert the money, right? So therefore RBI tries that the owner's stake in the bank should be limited, it should be reduced. Therefore, according to RBI's promoter shareholding criteria, once a person gets a license to operate a bank, within 15 years he has to dilute his stake from 40% to 15% so that his say on this bank is less. Otherwise he will misuse his position to divert people's money to other connected companies. That is the existing regulation. Now the RBI panel has even suggested that we should increase this limit. You see, last year Mr. Uday Kotak, the owner of Kotak Mahindra Bank, had to sell almost $1 billion worth of shares because he had to reduce his stake. LAF and MSF. RBI has announced that LAF and MSF will now be available to regional rural banks also. LAF, Liquidity Adjustment Facility, and Marginal Standing Facility were already available to commercial banks like SBI, ICICI Bank, and cooperative banks like PMC Bank. Now these will be also available to regional rural banks. Now often we get confused between this LAF, repo rate, reverse repo rate, marginal standing facility, CRR, SLR, right, NDTL and ANBC. So I'll tell you in brief what these mean and we will see the previous year questions related to these topics. So things will become crystal clear. So first of all, please understand that whenever we use the word NDTL, it means deposit. Okay, not exactly it means deposit, but for our purpose, for civil service exam, you can assume NDTL means net demand and time liabilities. That is your demand deposit and your fixed deposit, same as your deposit. Fine. And when a bank gives a loan, that is adjusted net bank credit, the credit that the bank gives. That is, NDTL is another name for deposit, ANBC is another name for loan. Now when you deposit 100 rupees to a bank, bank deposits 3.5 rupees as CRR with the RBI. In return, bank does not get any interest. Bank has to maintain 18 rupees as SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. Right? This SLR can be maintained either as cash, or the bank can purchase some gold, or the treasury bill, central government security, or state government security. State government securities are known as State Development Loan, or SDL. Okay, 18 rupees went there. Now the remaining amount of those 100 rupees, that bank can give as a loan. Now again there is a condition that when bank gives a loan, 40% of that loan should go to priority sector areas. What is PSL? We will see later on. When bank deposited money with RBI as CRR, bank did not earn any interest. But when bank has used this deposited money with government to buy government security, then obviously bank will earn the interest. Okay, when bank gives a loan, it earns an interest. There can be situation when bank is flooded with money. For example, last year when lockdown was imposed, people started spending less, they saved more, and they did not take new loans. People who wanted to purchase a car by taking a loan, they deferred their decision due to lockdown, right? So the loans would decrease, but savings would increase. In such a case, bank has lots of money, but it can't lend. There are not enough buyers in the market. Therefore, with this extra money, bank will purchase more government securities, because when bank purchases government securities, for holding these government securities, bank gets interest, right? So please notice that here the government security that bank purchased was mandatory in a way due to SLR, but here it is voluntarily purchasing them. Simple funda, right? It should be clear till now. Very simple story. Now just remember, there are many terms that UPSC repeatedly asks in prelims: repo, reverse repo, long-term repo, MSF, call money market, notice money market. The simple trick to learn all of them is to learn only and only what is repo. If you understand what is repo, you don't have to learn all these things. All these things will become obvious to you. What is repo? Just remember that a bank is in need of money. It goes to the RBI and borrows some money for one night. Okay, they have to see, throughout the day, lots of people deposit the money and they take out the money. Lots of people take the loan and they repay the loan. So there are a lot of fluctuations on a daily basis. So there can be times when bank is in need of money, it will borrow some money from RBI. There are times when bank has lots of money, it will park extra money with RBI. Okay? For our purpose, for learning purpose, just remember that when a bank is in need of money, a bank needs money for one night, it uses repo rate. It uses repo rate to borrow money from RBI. Just remember that. Okay, what is repo rate? The simple, bank is in need of money, bank will borrow the money from RBI for one night. Right? So that becomes your repo. Now tell me, what is reverse repo? Just the opposite, right? Here that bank borrowed money from RBI, here RBI is borrowing money from bank. Mainly the reserve bank has too much money, it will give money to the RBI and earn interest. What is long-term repo? Repo was for one night. Long-term repo is for 1 to 3 years. The rate will be at the repo rate itself. Simple things. Now the point is, when bank went to RBI that please give me some money, RBI would say, please give me some collateral. What if you take this money and you run away? Right? So RBI says, please place some collateral with me. The collateral that bank will place with the RBI is a government security. Which government security? This one? No. This is compulsory. Bank must hold this government security for maintaining SLR. Right? So this from this remaining money that bank purchased these government securities, these government security bank will keep as collateral to with RBI, and bank will take the loan. That is your repo. Okay, you remember this? Reverse repo, bank has extra money, so bank keeps the extra money with RBI, and RBI gives as collateral the government security to the bank, right? Same thing with long term repo. Now there can be times when bank does not have enough government securities, these one, but bank still needs the money from RBI. So in such cases, RBI says, fine, I'll give you a concession. I will allow you to use these government securities, these SLR wali government securities, I'll allow you to use them as collateral. But since I, the RBI, since I am doing you a favor by allowing you to use them, these government security, therefore I will charge more interest from you. Earlier I was charging 4% repo rate. Now I will charge, RBI is saying to the bank, now I will charge 4.25% from you, because I am allowing you to do some exceptional thing. Okay. So you understand this facility. Okay, this facility that RBI is giving, this allowing the bank to keep these SLR wali government security as collateral and borrow more money. This facility is called as marginal standing facility. So marginal standing facility is same as repo. What is repo? Bank is borrowing money from RBI. Same thing is MSF. Bank is borrowing money from RBI. The only difference is that in repo, bank was using these securities. In case of MSF, bank is using these securities. That is the only difference. And obviously there is a higher rate of interest. Right? So the collateral in the case of repo, reverse repo, long-term repo was a government security outside SLR, this one. And in case of MSF, the collateral is government security of SLR, this one. Right? Now obviously the rate of MSF is higher than the rate of repo, है ना? Because RBI is doing a favor by allowing to keep these as collateral. Now reverse repo will always be lower than repo. Very simple funda. You are a person, you went to the bank to deposit money. When you deposit money, you get only 3% interest. But when you borrow money from bank, you will have to pay 10%. When you deposit, you get less amount. Similarly, what is reverse repo? Reverse repo is when bank is depositing money with RBI. So bank will get less rate of interest. So reverse repo is lower. The difference between the highest and lowest, that is difference between MSF and reverse repo, is called as the policy corridor. For example, just remember what is policy corridor. It is related to your liquidity adjustment facility. These operations, repo, reverse repo, these are called as liquidity adjustment facility. Okay. Now please notice one thing. I told you here that when bank borrowed money as MSF, as a repo, under repo, when bank borrowed money from RBI or under MSF also, then bank had to keep some collateral, because we are assuming that bank can run away. Okay, just hypothetically speaking. Now the thing is, when the reverse thing happens, then RBI will give the collateral. Here bank was giving the collateral. When bank keeps the money with RBI, then RBI will give the collateral. Point is, why should RBI give the collateral? RBI is not going to run away, then why should RBI give the collateral? So yes, therefore there is something called as standing deposit facility. Here banks can park their money with RBI. RBI will give interest to the bank, but RBI will not give a collateral as a government security. Fine. Also, otherwise also, there can be times when banks have too much of money with them, and when so many banks want to give so many security, want to park so many money with RBI, then RBI will have to arrange so many government securities. Where will RBI get suddenly so many government securities? So therefore there is this facility of standing deposit facility. This facility was announced in the 2018 budget. Okay, there have been repeated demands that it should be actualized, but I think till now RBI has not actualized this thing. Okay, so that's this reverse repo alternative. So this is a reverse repo. Okay, same thing is happening at SDF. The only thing is that there is no government security here. Now we were talking about cases when bank borrowed money from RBI. Now bank can also borrow money from another bank, na? So such a thing we call as call money market or notice money market or term money market. When a bank borrows money from another bank, if the bank is just simply calling another bank and asking for money for one day, it is call money market. When bank says I need money for 2 to 14 days, then you have to issue a notice. Just remember like this, okay? You issue a notice, so it is called as a notice money market. And if it is more than 14 days, then it is called as term money market. Now what is MIBOR and LIBOR? When bank was borrowing from RBI, then we know the repo rate because RBI had declared the repo rate, right? But when one bank is borrowing from another bank, what rate will you consider? So there is something called as MIBOR, some reference rate. Okay, the actual dealing can be higher than MIBOR, but MIBOR is generally the reference rate. That is Mumbai interbank offered rate, the rate that one bank offers to another bank for loan. Please remember, in these cases no collateral is required, right? Just like there is a MIBOR, there is a LIBOR as well. Just remember the terms that these are related to banking. Now let us see the previous year questions. If RBI increases CRR, it means banks will have less money to lend. So you deposited 100 rupees. Yeah, you deposited 100 rupees and 3.5 is a CRR. Now if CRR is increased from 3.5 to, let us say, 10 rupees. So banks will have less money to give as loan here, right? So banks will have less money to lend. Another question. Mechanism used by banks for providing credit to government. Banks provide loan to government. Okay, banks give loan to government. How? Through statutory liquidity ratio. In polity class also we studied, na, there is government borrowing, government borrows money. How? By issuing bonds, by issuing securities. So here 18 rupees has to be kept as SLR, and much of the SLR is in the form of government security. So when bank gives money to the government, government gives in return government securities. So in a way government is taking a loan, right? So that is what we are talking here, credit to the government. Next is purpose of SLR, statutory reserve requirement, same thing as SLR. What is the purpose of SLR? Only one is correct. Purpose is that central bank wants to control the money supply or the amount of advances, the loans that banks can create, right? So if there is GDP growth rate of, let's say, just 3%, India is not doing well, suppose, right? So what we can do is RBI will say to banks, RBI will say that banks should give more loans to corporates at low rate of interest. So RBI would want to increase the money with the banks. So RBI will decrease SLR, RBI will decrease CRR, right? So the purpose of SLR is that RBI should be able to, by changing SLR value, RBI is able to change the money supply. Suppose earlier this SLR was 20. Okay, now there is a slowdown in India, therefore RBI will say that we are decreasing SLR from 20 to 18. So this extra 2 rupee comes to the bank, is available to the bank to give loan, right? So obviously bank will have more money to give as loan, therefore interest rate will fall down. To make people's, second option is to make people's deposit with banks safe and liquid. By SLR, government is the bank is not giving the money to the as a loan, If bank is not giving a money as a loan, the money is safe. So money is safe, that's true. But money is not liquid. Liquid means you can encash it or use it anytime you want. Suppose you earned 10 lakh rupees. You invested those 10 lakh rupees to buy a land. Is this investment liquid? No, it is not liquid. Because when you need this 10 lakh rupees, you can't immediately go and get it. There's a process. You will have to find the buyer for the land, then you will do the registry. Okay, so it will take a lot of time. So that is not liquid. However, the money with you in your pocket, the money with the bank that you have, okay, all those things are liquid. To make people's deposit with bank liquid, no. Banks don't use SLR money. Okay, so that is not the purpose of SLR. Banks don't use this SLR money to repay to the people, right? People's deposit. That is not true. So second is wrong. Third is to prevent banks from making excessive profit. That is none of the concern. Okay, banks should make profit, in fact. So making profits is not bad. Profiteering is bad when you make excessive profits to the length of exploiting others. Like in case of GST, when we studied GST, when government brought GST, government also brought National Anti-Profiteering Authority. That when due to GST, when things should become cheaper, then no company should appropriate this extra profit and do profiteering. Okay, so making profits is not bad. To force banks to have sufficient vault cash for day-to-day requirement, no. Once you have invested money in SLR, you can't use this money for day-to-day requirements. So fourth is also wrong. 2015 question. If RBI reduces SLR by 50 basis point, same thing is getting repeated again and again. When RBI decreases SLR from 20 to 18, then extra 2 rupees is available with the bank to give as loan, right? So banks may cut the lending rate. Why will the bank cut the lending rate? When bank has extra 2 rupees to give as loan, bank will say that earlier I was giving the loan at 10%, now I have more money to give at loan, so maybe I can attract customers by offering the loan only at 9%. Marginal Standing Facility (MSF) and NDTL are related to banking operations. If RBI decides to adopt expansionist monetary policy means you are trying to basically increase the money supply, right? So usually what RBI would do is, please read carefully. Here the question is, which of the following would it not do? First option is cut the SLR. When RBI cuts or reduces SLR, then more money is available with the banks. Banks will give more loan. Okay, that will be monetary expansion. So yes, that's a good thing, right? That is how monetary expansion will occur. Cut and optimize SLR, right? So it will do such a thing. Next is third point is cut the bank rate and repo rate. This is your bank. Bank has borrowed money from RBI. Bank is borrowing money, okay, at repo rate. Now if let's say repo rate was 4%, bank was borrowing money from RBI at 4%. Now it is reduced. Let's say it becomes 3%. So banks are getting money at less rate of interest. It's a good thing. So banks will have more money to give forward. So that will also is in favor of expansionist monetary policy. Second sentence is increase MSF. MSF is same as repo rate. Here we saw that the repo rate should be cut down. Here it is saying increase the MSF or repo rate. So that is wrong. Question was, which of the following RBI would not do? So the correct answer is B, 2. That is B only. Because first and third RBI should do, right? Regional rural banks. So as I explained earlier, government wanted that the poor people should also get the loans. Therefore, after nationalizing the banks in 1969, okay, government in 1976 introduced this concept. Government brought this law, RRB Act 1976. RRBs were set up under this law. RRBs or regional rural banks are regulated. Their banking functions are regulated by the RBI, but they are supervised by NABARD. Ownership structure is important. 50% they are owned by central government, 15% by state governments, and there is a sponsor bank. Okay, let us say there is SBI or PNB, ICICI Bank. There are some big banks, they act as a sponsor bank. Regional rural banks focus is on rural area, but they can also have branches in urban areas, right? NABARD. NABARD was formed in 1982 by NABARD Act 1981. So it is a statutory body. Ownership, earlier it was owned by RBI, but a few years ago government purchased the stake. So now NABARD is 100% government owned. Prelims 2011 question. In India, which of the following have the highest share in disbursement of credit to agriculture? Most of the loans to agriculture comes from scheduled commercial bank like SBI, PNB, etc. Okay, almost 80%. So although regional rural banks are focused on rural areas, still only 5% of the need is met from RRBs, 80% of the need is met from commercial banks. The function of NABARD is very important. Okay, UPSC can ask this. The simple funda is anything related to rural India, NABARD is involved. Okay, for exam purpose, you can think like this, with one exception that NABARD does not directly give home loan, does not give directly loan to any rural household. People just can't go to NABARD and ask for a loan. Okay, so this thing you should remember. This UPSC asked in prelims 2013 also. So I'll just read it out for you in brief. What does NABARD website say about the work of NABARD? The work of NABARD is financial inclusion, financial inclusion, giving refinance support to rural infra. Refinance support is like, suppose a bridge is to be made up, is to be constructed. The company constructing the bridge has taken loan from a bank. Now bank would also need the money, na? So maybe it can take from NABARD. Okay, so NABARD refinances rural infra projects. It prepares district level credit plans, motivates banks to lend more to the poor people, supervises cooperative banks and regional rural banks. NABARD implements developmental schemes, it trains handicraft artisans, and it helps the artisans in selling their products. In 1992, NABARD initiated self-help group bank linkage program. Kisan credit card was also designed by NABARD. Watershed development, sustainable climate proofing, anything and everything related to the rural area, NABARD is involved except giving direct loans to rural households. Cooperative banks. See, the concept of cooperative is pretty simple. Suppose the concept of cooperatives, okay, so suppose you want to make a big housing project. Okay, for housing project you need big land, big money to buy big land, and then money to build the buildings, right? So these are rich people. A rich person like rich builders like Parshnath, DLF, Godrej Properties. So these people have lots of money. They will buy the land and build the buildings and then sell the flats. However, common man can also come together. Common people who have small amounts of money, they all can contribute and form this huge amount. With this huge amount, they will buy the land and construct the buildings and then they will live there. So this is a cooperative basis. Now, in such a cooperative manner, you can make cooperative group housing societies, or you can run Amul, right? You can run a bank also, urban cooperative banks. Okay, so urban cooperative banks, they are registered as a cooperative society. Cooperative societies are registered if the function, if they're functioning within a state, then this cooperative society or cooperative bank will register with the state government under state government's law. However, if it is working in multiple states, then this bank will register itself with Multi-State Cooperative Society Act, okay, with the Registrar of Cooperative Societies of the center. So the administration is regulated by the Registrar of Cooperative Societies, but the banking functions, they are regulated by the RBI, because it is still a bank, right? And RBI regulates banks. Three things related to urban cooperative banks that were in news. One is supervisory action framework. You must have heard about the prompt corrective action. Same is the thing for urban cooperative banks, only the name is different, right? Why is PCA required? Suppose if you remember that IDBI bank had almost a gross NPA ratio of 30%, right? Now things don't become so bad immediately. It is possible that initially the NPA was just 5%, then it slowly increased to up to 30%. So RBI should act at the initial stage itself. So when RBI puts some limitations on a bank whose profits are decreasing, okay, and other things, then that is called as prompt corrective action. Under prompt corrective action, RBI can say to a bank that please reduce the amount of salary you are giving to the directors. Okay, RBI can say that you as a bank cannot open more branches because you are not able to maintain your existing branches and your NPA ratio is continuously increasing. So such things RBI can say under prompt corrective action. And the equivalent name in case of urban cooperative bank is supervisory action framework. System based asset classification. So sometimes what happens is with these small cooperative banks, they give loan. Okay, this is urban cooperative bank. It got people's deposit and it gave loan. These loans turned into NPA. Loans are assets of the bank, right? So loan turned NPA, but bank did not show on its books that this loan has become NPA. Therefore, RBI has said that whenever there are big urban cooperative banks, like the one that has assets or it has given loan for more than 1000 crore, then it should set up a computerized system whereby these asset classification is already done, is automatically done. The bank will not be able to hide the status of the NPAs. Another reason why urban cooperative banks were in news was obviously the PMC scam, right? So in this case, government amended this act, the 1949 act government amended. Why? Because RBI's control over cooperative banks was somewhat less or weak. Through this amendment, RBI has almost the same powers on cooperative banks that it has on normal scheduled commercial banks. One thing you should remember is the last point. It empowers RBI to enforce reconstruction or amalgamation without moratorium. See, if you remember, in the case of Yes Bank, okay, when RBI realized that Yes Bank needs to be taken over by some other banks, then around, I think for a week, for around 7 days or something like that, some moratorium was imposed on Yes Bank. That is, the customers cannot do any dealing, they cannot pay anyone, they cannot withdraw the money and all such things. So when RBI is busy in merging a bank with another bank, it puts moratorium. Okay, now by amending this act, we have empowered RBI that in case such reconstruction or merger of banks are is required, then there is no need to put moratorium. You can directly do that because it is unnecessarily causes panic with the people. So the inspiration for this amendment was obviously the PMC scandal. So here what happened was that as a bank, the people's money, 73% money went to a single company. Okay, and why was this thing not caught? What the owners did was, I told you the owners of bank are very powerful people. So what they did was, the owners, they created around 24,000 small loan accounts. So on paper, this bank gave loan to 24,000 people, but in reality all this money actually went to a single company. Okay. Priority sector lending. So like I explained it to you, after independence the private banks were not giving loans to the poor people. Therefore government brought the concept of bank nationalization in 1969. Now also government did not stop there. In 1974 government brought the concept of priority sector lending, whereby whatever amount of loan, this is a bank, whatever loan that the bank is giving, of that around 40% should be for the weaker sections. So but this 40% limit is 75% in case of RRBs and small finance banks, right? So these banks, whatever money they give as loan, 75% has to be in these categories. The categories are agriculture, education, MSME, export, housing, social infra and renewable energy. The urban cooperative banks, right now for them the limit is 40%, but by 2024 this limit will be increased to 75%. So this is from the official website of RBI. Here the target for urban cooperative bank is 40%, gradually increasing to 75% by 2024. If PSL target is not achieved, so for a bank, suppose the target is of 40%, right? And it is give whatever the loans that bank has given, of that 40% should have gone to these sectors. But suppose only 35% went to those sectors. So what about the remaining 5%? That remaining 5%, either the bank can buy a PSL certificate, another bank exceeded its target 45%. So this second bank will sell the certificate to this bank. Okay, that is one way. Another bank is, bank will have to give the shortfall to RIDF. RIDF is Rural Infra Development Fund. So mainly what happens is, this bank failed to give loan to these weaker sections. So now RBI is saying, the government is saying basically, that the bank should put that money, extra money that it did not give as loan, this 5%, in a fund called Rural Infra Development Fund, and from this loan will be given to state governments to complete infrastructure projects, right? So 2013 question, priority sector lending by banks in India constitutes the lending to all categories: agriculture, MSME, weaker section. Okay, the categories are given here, or here, agriculture, education, MSME. So the other topics for this class are IPO by small finance banks. Okay, IPO by small finance banks, stressed assets, SARFAESI, Insolvency Act, the non-banking finance companies, the core investment company, okay, inflation targeting, monetization of deficit, like money supply, okay, question on money supply that comes almost after a few years. 2020 also question came. Okay, so these things we will cover in this class itself. Some more topics like the payment system, okay, payment infra development fund and all those things. but there will be a small change of plans. The change of plans is that till now we were putting all the videos totally free on YouTube, but to maintain sustainability we are going to put some portion as a paid video portion. So economy current affairs, we are not talking about all the economy, we are teaching only economy current affairs. Of economy current affair for this year, economy class 1 is on YouTube free for all. This is class 2. Small portion of class 2 I have just completed right now. The remaining portion of class 2, okay, this I will explain as a part of the paid course. Similarly, for class 3 of economics current affairs, some portion will be free on YouTube and the remaining will be a part of the paid course. So on, so on, so on. So by the 10th October, when you write your prelims, to cover economics current affairs, whatever classes we cover, the paid portion, okay, if you want to purchase this paid portion, what you have to do is you have to pay rupees 250 for the English class. Okay, this one is English class, there is English PDF and there is English voice. Okay, the explanation is in English. If the explanation is in Hindi, then you would, if you want explanation in Hindi, you will have to pay rupees 200. So this is English class. If you want the remaining portion of these remaining classes, just pay 250 rupees and you will get these remaining paid classes for economics current affairs as and when they are released, right? So all you have to do is you have to see the description box of this video. There will be a link to make the payment.